This ancient whale might be the largest animal ever to live on Earth. Hi there, everyone. I'm Jeff, and this is Plain English, where we help you upgrade your English skills with stories about current events and trending topics. By listening here, you'll improve your vocabulary and upgrade your skills in English. These lessons don't produce themselves, and that's why we have JR. He's been the producer since day one here at Plain English, and he has uploaded the transcript of today's episode to plainenglish.com/616. Coming up today, the blue whale is the largest animal, the largest living creature on Earth. Scientists also think the blue whale is the largest animal ever to live in all of Earth's history, including the dinosaur age. But a new discovery off the coast of Peru might change that assumption. It shouldn't come as a surprise that in the second half of the lesson, we'll talk about an English expression, and today that expression is come as a surprise. I'll show you 3 ways to use this very common expression. We have a quote of the week too, and the fun continues online with videos, exercises, flashcards, quizzes, and more at plainenglish.com/616. I think we're ready to start. Let's get going. The largest animal alive is the blue whale. The biggest blue whales are almost 30 meters long, and they weigh almost 200 tons. That's the equivalent of 2,500 people. The blue whale's heart alone weighs 180 kilograms. The blue whale is bigger than its ancestors. The smallest whales today are the size of average whales many millions of years ago. Large whales first appeared about 35 million years ago, but scientists think they started to get really big only about 4 million years ago. Evolution is slow, remember, but it appears that whales have been getting bigger with time. So it came as a surprise when a team of paleontologists discovered a skeleton of a whale that might have been bigger than the blue whale and which lived 39 million years ago. A paleontologist is a scientist that studies fossils and the history of life on Earth. And an international team of paleontologists discovered 17 bones in the Ica Valley of southern Peru. At first, they didn't know what they were looking at. The bones just looked like boulders. But additional testing revealed that they were, in fact, fossils. In total, they found a hip bone, 4 ribs, and 13 vertebrae. Those are the bones that make up an animal's back. These bones belong to a species of whale that had never been seen before. In fact, this skeleton is bigger than that of any other known species, whale or otherwise. Testing on the fossils dates the remains to 37 to 39 million years ago. Only a small portion of the whale's full skeleton was found, so the team had to estimate the size of the full animal. They looked at the size and density of the fossils and compared them to skeletons of other whales. From that, they estimate that this new species, they called it Perucetus colossus. They estimate that Perucetus colossus weighed between 93 and 340 tons. The high end of that range is much bigger than today's blue whales, but even the midpoint of that potential range would make this new whale bigger than blue whales today, and therefore the biggest animal ever to have lived on Earth. But even the low end of the range, 93 tons, would make this new whale a giant for its time, and it complicates the story of how whales evolved. Scientists think that today's giant whales got so big when they developed filter feeding systems, the ability to ingest large quantities of small fish like krill and plankton just by moving through the water. This new whale, however, somehow got to be very large before filter feeding systems evolved. So how did the newly discovered Perucetus colossus eat enough to get so big? That's a huge unanswered question. Unfortunately, the researchers didn't discover a skull which would give clues about the whale's diet. There are a few early hypotheses. The Perucetus colossus would not have been an agile swimmer given its size and shape, so it would probably not have been a hunter of large fish. Whales don't eat plants, and the filter feeding system had not yet evolved. So that means it might have been a bottom feeder. Another theory is that it might have been a scavenger, eating the carcasses of other fish and animals. But without a skull, it's too early to tell. The fossils are currently on display at the Natural History Museum in Lima. The species was described in the scientific journal Nature in August of this year, 2023. I'm always in awe of how long the teams of scientists study fossils and evidence before their findings are released. They discovered these fossils 13 years ago. It took many years to get these fossils out of the rocks where they were found. And then they modeled them, studied them, and described their findings in that paper. And in case you're wondering, yes, these are bigger than the dinosaurs. The biggest dinosaur was 70 tons. This new whale, was at least 93 tons, the authors say. Now it's time for a quote of the week. Have you ever heard someone say they would die for their beliefs? Here's an alternate take from Bertrand Russell. He says, I would never die for my beliefs because they might be wrong. Bertrand Russell was a mathematician and philosopher. He says, "I would never die for my beliefs because they might be wrong." Now I'm going to show you a really common English expression, come as a surprise. If something is unexpected, it comes as a surprise. I'll show you 3 ways of using this expression today. Let's start with the basic way of using it. You'll want to talk about an event and say that it comes as a surprise or it came as a surprise. For example, you can say, the CEO's resignation. That's the event. The CEO's resignation came as a surprise since he was relatively young and had no plans to retire. That means the CEO's resignation surprised people. So you can say it came as a surprise. After the pandemic, many economists were worried that the economy would suffer a sharp recession. But the post-pandemic growth and the post-pandemic inflation came as a surprise. You might even remember leading economists, including central bank economists, saying that inflation was temporary. That was before they started raising interest rates. They were surprised by the inflation. The inflation came as a surprise. So that's the first way. You start with a noun or a noun phrase, often an event, the CEO's resignation, the post-pandemic inflation, and then you say came as a surprise. The second way to use come as a surprise is very, very similar. In this case, we use it with actions. You say, it came as a surprise that, or it came as a surprise when, and then you say the action that's surprising. So we're using verbs here. Today, I told you all about the theory that whales started to get really big after they developed filter feeding systems, so they could ingest food just by swimming around or even by staying still in moving waters. Really old whales, tens of millions of years ago, they didn't have these systems, so they couldn't get really big. It came as a surprise when researchers discovered, there's the verb, it came as a surprise when researchers discovered a really big whale that lived 39 million years ago. That wasn't supposed to be possible. It came as a surprise because, up until now, scientists thought that whales only got really big relatively recently. You guys know, if you've been listening for a while, that I worked in business consulting for over 15 years. I was somewhat good at it, but I also wanted to try my hand at something else. You can imagine that I didn't tell a whole lot of people at work that I had already started this business, plain English, on the side. So it came as a surprise to my colleagues that I left my massive consulting firm and instead started a very small business. People were surprised by that. It came as a surprise that I left my career in consulting. It was surprising because I hadn't told many people at work about my plans. So you can say, it came as a surprise that, or it came as a surprise when, plus some type of action. Now, the last way I'll show you is a little more complicated. This is a way of saying that something is logical or expected, that someone should anticipate something, or someone should have anticipated something. And you say that something should not come as a surprise, or it should not come as a surprise that, plus an event or action. For example, you can say Elon Musk's decision to rename Twitter should not have come as a surprise. He has always criticized Twitter's branding, and he loves the letter X. That means you should not have been surprised about his decision to rename Twitter. You should have anticipated it. His decision to rename Twitter should not have come as a surprise. You can also say, it should not come as a surprise that, and then an action or event that you think should be anticipated or expected. You can say, it should not come as a surprise that she passed the exam on her first try. She has been studying for months. Well, it should not come as a surprise that listening regularly and reading the transcripts as you listen will help you improve your English. And that's why we put the full transcripts online each and every episode. You can find the transcripts for this lesson by going to plainenglish.com/616. It definitely helps to listen and read at the same time, at least at first. Well, that is all for today. If you do enjoy Plain English, please take just a few seconds to leave us a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever platform you use. It helps us reach more people so we can keep growing and serve you every Monday and Thursday. Well, that's all today. We'll see you right back here on Thursday.